Hello and welcome to my channel. Here I review movies, and today's film is a spy thriller called The Bricklayer. It follows an ex-operative being reactivated to take on a terrorist trying to frame the CIA. Mark Moss and Matt Johnson based the story on a novel by Noah Boyd, and Pete Travis and Hannah Wegg then adapted that into a screenplay. Rennie Harlan directed the film, which stars Aaron Eckhart as a retired spy called Steve Vale. Nina Dobrev plays his newly assigned CIA babysitter, Kate Bannon, and Clifton Collins Jr. plays the mysterious terrorist, Victor Radek. Like most spy thrillers, this one's a bit fantastical, but it has some decent acting, a few solid action sequences, and some enjoyable music. The story is also fairly exciting with lots going on. Starting with the story, it's your basic spy thriller where no one can be trusted, even the hero. They're constantly throwing twists and turns into the mix, and although it ends up being a tried and true cliche, it's not easy to see where you'll end up during the ride. There's lots of dramatic tension between the different characters in the forms of double-crossing and rivalries, and there's a few shocking character deaths. Although the characters are definitely stereotypical, they manage to create a good villain who poses a real threat and a hero that you can easily root for. The cast also does a solid job. They're all playing stereotypes, but they manage to do it with a little bit of charm, and all of them commit properly to their roles. Eckhart is playing a gruff action hero, Dobrev is the smart but naive sidekick, Nelson plays the hard-ass slimy boss at the CIA, and Ilfenesh Hattara is the ex-lover with a sordid past. The visual journey is also simple and effective. It's got interesting locations and costumes, a few nice landscape shots of Greece and the ocean, and a lot of action. There are fistfights, gunfights, a car chase or two, and a ludicrous amount of explosions. It doesn't always make sense, but it's a lot of fun to watch, and they did a pretty good job despite clearly being on a small budget. They had a lot of standout fights that I enjoyed, like the one on the elevator in the rain or at the party. The fistfights were brutal with lots of back and forth between the heroes and the villains, and the rest of it included a lot of fun, cheesy action moments like Vale constantly walking away from explosions. The soundtrack also does a decent job of following the emotional journey and adding a bit of flavor to the movie. They had a mixture of dramatic, intense orchestral instrumentals for action sequences and big conversations, and then they also used a few Miles Davis songs to help build out Vale's character. On the negative side of things, the film is clearly operating on a budget. For example, there are times when the green screen is poorly done and obvious. There is a lot of shaky camera movement, and some of the stunts look like they were meant to be more grand, but they didn't quite have the money. One of the more egregious examples is whenever they're in the car talking. You can actually see the line where the green screen background begins, and it's quite immersion breaking. There are also a couple of fights throughout the film that just aren't fun to watch. They're over-edited, too fast-paced, and hard to follow along with. They end up making you feel a bit dizzy, and you're not really sure what's happening. They also didn't always coordinate the extras well. During fights, you'd have two dudes brawling in the middle of a club area, and the people around them are just continuing to dance with mildly concerned looks on their faces. Like it's some kind of Street Fighter video game. The music isn't mixed quite right either. It's often just a little bit too loud. It ends up competing with the dialogue and making it hard to hear everything being discussed. It wasn't too bad, but there were a couple of scenes that I ended up having to replay. Finally, the story is completely generic, and is really not trying anything new. It's just another James Bond clone with Aaron Eckhart as the lead. The characters are all cliché stereotypes. The premise is unoriginal, and even the way it plays out is somewhat formulaic. They aren't good at making it seem realistic either. Bullet and knife wounds are fixed with a quick bandage, everything explodes, and Steve Vale is a bit of a Gary Stu. If you're into the genre and you don't mind slightly lower budget films, then you'll probably end up enjoying this one as mindless entertainment. If you need a really well-written story and strong memorable characters, you might want to pass on this. It's not winning any awards, but it's an entertaining film. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 6 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.